We were not surprised here at Consumer Protection that telemarketing was in the #1 slot. Telemarketing has been #1 since the Do Not Call program went into place nearly 2 decades ago at this point. And we were surprised that it takes up nearly 40% of the list, more than 4,800 complaints this year. We do know that a majority of those complaints are from scam artists. They are people trying to steal your money and your personal information. They are not complaints about the traditional Do Not Call list. They are not businesses trying to call and solicit individuals who are registered on the Do Not Call list. There's some of those, and we take and enforce those complaints when we receive them. We make contact with the business. We make sure the business gets registered if they're not, and put cease and desist in place from those business practices. But again, that was a small grouping of the total complaints that were received in this category. The rest are the scam artists. We are continuing to trend up in this category. More consumers are calling and reporting these calls to us, and we need that to happen. We share that data with the Federal Trade Commission and our other partners so we know what the scams are. Getting that word out to consumers for prevention purposes is a key responsibility of ours and a key fixture in making sure that consumers don't fall victim to things. So we need consumers to continue to report these phone calls even though they're on an upward trend and they may feel like they're constantly reporting things.
We certainly are going to look at trends and try to determine whether or not we can be more nimble when it comes to our reporting and our outreach and our public education. But as Michelle points out, folks' ability to report these numbers to DATCP allows us to report them to the FTC and allows them to get put on a blacklist. And so that's the kind of information that's useful to us. And when there are trends around those types of issues, then presumably the reaction is also going to reflect a response to those trends.
And one thing that we do in our media campaign every year is we do take a look at last year's data and look at where we had the spikes of phone calls and try and get those press releases or consumer alerts out in front of and anticipate what this year's activity will bring, while leaving ourselves open to be responsive to what's happening during this year instead of just reflecting on last year. So an example of that is we'll be getting the grandparents scams releases out come spring break time. We will get the IRS tax fraud scams out there. We'll be sure to get the utility scams out there during the spring. That seems surprising to people, but when the moratorium ends is when they start trying to collect that money. And we do try and get other types of scams out there. Tech support, it's kind of an open window, so we watch our current data as to when we'll plan that.
Well, no engagement, as you say, is the most important step. And it is cumbersome when you get a lot of calls, but when you stop engaging with them, it can bring down the number of calls that you're getting, because when you engage with those calls, it does allow them to put that on a lead generation list. So it can actually compound the problem when you engage. The other option is call blocking software. There are apps out there that allow you to do call blocking. A lot of the carriers offer call blocking as part of their services. So we encourage consumers to look into those spaces and those apps and see if that can curb the calls.
Mm-hmm. Other things, if you do happen to pick up the phone, be sure you don't press any buttons. Don't engage with that phone call at all. Realize that it is a scam and just hang up. They will often say press 1 to talk to a representative or 9 to get on our Do Not Call list. Do not press that 9 because that will again go to that lead generation list, and we don't want you to see an increase in phone calls that will happen as a result of that. So with the Do Not Call program and the telemarketing calls, it's really nice. We have what's called a fast track complaint form on our webpage. And if that's a short form really, it just asks what phone number received the phone call. You can provide your name and information and then what that call was about and what number it came from if you know that data. So about 5 to 10 questions. And you wouldn't hear back from us in response, but we follow on every single phone number that we receive data reported on. So you can go to datcp.wi.gov to fill that out. Otherwise, you can call Consumer Protection and have a complaint form sent out to you. It will be the long form. You would hear back from us in response to that complaint, and that is 1-800-422-7128.